Okay.
Okay, this is going to be very interesting. We're basically talking about something that we talked about on a previous video. It's kind of the second part because what you're about to hear is extremely graphic, so just be aware of that. You can tell by the title of the video that this isn't something that's appropriate for people of a certain age. So I want you to be aware of that. So if you're uncomfortable or anything else about the title, I wouldn't continue watching this video because we're going to talk about some serious stuff that's very upsetting. And we've got a guest with us here, and I could never pronounce the name, but she's taught me how to pronounce it. It's Chan Ing, and she's from the States. She's
Perfect.
just there. There you go.
There I
Okay.
am.
So it's basically Channing's story. Now, before we start, um, obviously, I have to say some legal things before we go ahead. This video is not being edited in any way. Everything you're about to hear is done straight off the cuff. Okay. It's going to be recorded in its entirety. Okay. You might see the fonts change and little graphics come on the screen. But again, at the end of the day, it's just me and Channing, sorry, and the just talking and having a chat. Okay, like I say, viewer discretion is very much advised in regards to this. So again, let me get this up because I have to read this. It says, before we begin, I just want to confirm for the recording that this conversation is based entirely on your own personal experiences and opinions. You understand this interview is being recorded and will be published publicly on my YouTube channel, and you give full permission for it to be used and shared. Are you happy to proceed?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Again, what you're about to hear is very distressing. Now, we did a part one, and that lasted around an hour and a half, and I did not expect it to go in that direction. I knew that she had a story, but I didn't know how graphic and upsetting it was. If you want to find out more about that, please go on to the other video. I'm just gonna see if I can find it for you. I'm gonna get an image up if I can find it, just so you can see it. Where is it? Is that it? There it is. Okay, so I've just put an image on the screen for the people to see at home. It's called This Is How Gangs Groom Children. Her full story will haunt you. So that was the first video that we did together. And I was shocked. I didn't know what she was going to say until she actually spoke to me about it. So what I would suggest you do, watch this video, but if you want to know the beginning part of it, go back and watch that as well. Okay, so it'll give you more insight to what actually happened. So I'll just give you a bit of a summary, if that's all right with you, of what
Yeah.
happened. So I was listening, by the way, even though I'm a man. People think men don't listen. That's what my wife says. We've got selective hearing, you know, men. That's what they say. But basically,
Yeah.
when you were a little girl, you were, I think, around about 5 years old. You were brought up pretty well. Nice mum, nice house, quite a well-to-do family. But when you were 5 years old, you were put into like a nursery of some sort, and then you're a little girl, and what happened? Two 7-year-old boys assaulted you. Again,
Mhm.
watch part one if you want to know more information about that. Now, because of the assault and Channing being such a young girl, it obviously confused her, distressed her, and traumatized her by what actually happened. And then it set you up on a different path then of confusion, anxiety. Your mind was completely what you couldn't make sense of it. Like, how could you? You were a little girl, and that was the seed that was implanted. And again, what came after that was destructive behavior from your part because you didn't tell anybody what happened. Well, you told your mum about that eventually, and then the school got shut down. That was right, wasn't it? The nursery got shut down when she investigated it, and then
Yep.
right, okay, and you thought right. So, but that wasn't it. There was a family member who was a SA.
Hmm.
Use it without saying the word. They were they were they were
Hmm.
abusing her when she was a little girl, and this was a family member. Again, Channing self-esteem was so low because of this, the trauma she had. What was it, like a guilt towards the person who did it to you?
Yeah, Stockholm syndrome.
That's it. So you didn't want to say anything because you didn't want to get them into trouble.
Hmm.
Then this led to homelessness, being on the streets at a very young age, starting from around about 16. This horrific story of what happened. Eventually, it got to a point that she did move back home. My mum said, "Come back home." But then you told your mum about the man who did this to you, and
Hmm.
without saying who he was, let's just say she kicked him out. I said, "Okay," and then you moved back in, and then your mother moved the man back into the house, into the
Right.
garage. Um, okay. All right. Okay. Let's get into this. So the story's big. Go and watch part one. Okay, because I'm just summarizing it, but there's so much more to it. Now we're going to get into part two about this. So what I want you to do, guys, is just brace yourself because I don't know where this is going, but I know it's going to be very interesting. So let's get into it.
Analyzing the news.
Right, so again, we've got Channing here with us. I'm very conscious about saying your name. Channing. I'll get it one day.
Channing.
Channing,
Jackie
sorry.
Channing. Remember that. Jackie Channing.
Jackie Channing. Right, perfect. Right, so what we're going to do, again, if you want to watch part one, please go and watch that. But this is the second part of it. And what I want you to do is sort of tell me from that point. So you've moved in. I know we went a little bit over that point, but let's start back. So you've, after everything that happened, how old were you when you moved back home to your mum?
Let me see. I had my son in 2009, so it was 2008. So I would have been 32. So I was like 20. What would that be? Like 21, 22? I think I was 22, 22 or 23 when I moved back home. And I moved back home because I had overdosed and they were going to throw my body out of the trailer instead of reviving me. So that was enough to scare me. Like I was dabbling in heroin a little bit, but not that much to where that first overdose just really scared me. So hi big guy. Hi big guy. um so I moved back home and I had my first abortion because I was strung out and I knew that that baby wouldn't have even had a chance. And I get pregnant with my second son, Skylar, at this time. And I am doing good. My child's father is living there with us, and he turns out to be a monster, a pathological liar. He used to tell me that he lived through all this trauma and he was raped, and he would like, I'd come home and he'd be underneath the bed crying and shaking. He said he had Parkinson's. I'd always tell him, go to the doctor. You got a baby on the way. Like, what are you doing? He would tell me all these crazy stories about how he had a child with she was 16 and he was 19. And that's why he was a sex offender. Because I remember one day I'm sitting up there, I'm like 8 months pregnant with my second son, and two sheriffs pull up and they said, do you realize that this man has an attack on his record? And I said, yeah, he told me, you know. So they arrest him because he wasn't registering. And in the United States, you have to register. So he ends up relapsing. He keeps relapsing. And I want him gone. Like I would find him standing over me when I was sleeping on the couch, like just staring at me. So he started to have really weird, erratic behavior. So I tell him I want him gone. And I'm about to have my second son. My mom's in the delivery room with me because I've had C-sections. I've had two C-sections now. And I later find out down the road that he was never sick. He never had Parkinson's, and he did have a history of attacking children, little boys.
Yeah.
So it was this story that I heard that made me confront my attacker
Mm.
because here I have two little boys that look identical to me. Identical to me. And what kind of a mother would I be if I didn't protect them? you know. So I just had my second child. He was about 8 months old. And I talked to my attacker and I said, I need to talk to you. And he said, okay. And I waited until my mom wasn't home. And I said, I'm worried about you touching my boys. I'm worried about you doing to them what you did to me. And he said, Chan, I'm addicted to you like you are drugs. And I fantasize about you and I've dreamt about you, but I can't be with you the way I want. So I'm not that same person anymore. And I remember holding my son and looking down at him. And I said, okay. I called my friend up. I was in beauty school. I was getting my cosmetology degree. And I said, I need to come over to your house tomorrow. And she said, okay, is everything okay? And I said, no, I'm not okay. So I go over there. I call my mom. I said, Mom, everything I told you is true. And she said, what? I said, Mom, everything I told you was true. Everything you read in my journal that day was true. She said, I'll be there in 5 minutes. She called my attacker. She told him to get to the house. He gets to the house, and I'll never forget the sound of my mom crying that day. She asked him, and he admitted to it, and I just could hear her breaking. And it fucked me up, because like a big part of me had this relief because it's like finally my truth has been released, but now I'm watching my mother, the person I love the most in the world, just breaking. So after that, I watched my family fall apart. My brother was upset. My mom was upset. She didn't understand like why this has happened, why she didn't see the signs, how did she not know, going through that whole process. She didn't understand why I didn't tell her. She gave me every opportunity to tell her. Why would you not tell me? Why would you protect him? Why wouldn't you protect, you know what I mean? Just that whole process that I don't even have answers for. I can't explain those questions because I don't know why. I don't know why I felt like it was my fault. I don't know why I couldn't just tell her and make my life better. I don't know why. And I still to this day can't figure it out. I still carry guilt and burden on something that was never my fault. No matter how much counseling I've been through or how much people I've talked to or how many times I've told this story, I still feel guilt. So I tell my mom, and he's living up at our old house at this point, and we move into a new rental, and the house is being foreclosed. So when the house gets foreclosed, my mom puts him up in an apartment, but the finances get too much. She's raising two of my children now, me, my brother, and her on a salary that didn't cover all that. So she asked me if it's okay if he moves back in. And I said, yeah, that's okay, Mom. She said, you'll sleep in the room with me. He'll be in the garage. And I said, okay. And she said, are you sure you're okay with it? And I said, yeah, I'm okay with it, Mom. So he moves back in. And I really thought I would have been okay with it. I thought telling her about it and all that would have made it better. And it broke me. It literally broke me. Like within a couple months, I was getting high. I was relapsing. I was stealing minor stuff from stores. I was doctor shopping. I was doing all this crazy stuff that I wasn't doing before. And I could see the spiral. And my son was about the same age as my first son when I detached, and I completely detached from both my children again because I felt like they didn't need me. And I tell my mom I'm going to go hang out at a friend's house, and I never came back home.
Okay. It's hard to sort of.
I can't hear you.
Sorry, it's hard
There we
to.
go.
Yeah, my mic. Sorry, I've got a button here. If I don't press it, it goes
Yeah.
off. I'm just saying it's hard to get my head around this because it's lunacy. But putting this person, is a male. He was a family. Has he been prosecuted for this?
Mm,
No.
mm-mm.
And where's this man now?
He is living in a little trailer. My mom watches everything he does. She takes every dollar he makes. He is given an allowance, and he can either buy beer or he can buy gas for the week.
Mm.
And he's not allowed to talk to anybody. He is in prison, but just a different kind of prison. She
For
said that he will never be able to hurt another child like he did me.
and this was a family member.
Hmm. A very close family member.
Yeah. And I think was it you were around, was it 10 years old that it started?
When it started, yeah.
Yeah.
But my whole life, he was never close to me. He always liked my brother more than me, and I always had a resentment towards him because I was never a child that he wanted to be around or loved the same, and that hurts. That hurts as a child. And then my brother comes and it's like that's his pride and joy. It's almost like he lived vicariously through my brother.
Mm. I know you were saying, what type of person, if you were going to describe your mum, looking on the outset, like someone not from your perspective, to everybody else, what type of woman was your mum? Was she outgoing? Was she
Incredible.
incredible?
Strong-minded.
Because you said,
She makes over $150,000 a year. She's a human resource director. Never graduated high school. She has a fake GED. She is self-sufficient. She has never had to depend on a man. She, she's so strong. She's battled 3 different kinds of cancer and has survived them all. She's always the type of woman I wanted to be. She gets criticized very harshly, though,
mm,
and she gets judged very harshly. And she always has, and it's always been about me. Even when I was acting out in school, like, well, why aren't you doing this or why aren't you doing that? Everybody wants to ask, well, why this or why that? But are you in their shoes? Are you
mm,
walking in their shoes?
mm,
No, you're not. So how do you know how you would handle shit? You know what I mean, though? Like,
yeah,
and I've been judged my whole life too. Everything I do, even now, like even with my memoir I've written, the questions I've been asked, I'm like, I get a lot of good feedback, but I get a lot of negative, like, are you paying for your victims? Are you doing this or that? I served my time.
yeah.
I served my time. I served every day of my time. And all I can do is be a better person. So looking out for my mom, she was ambitious, she was driven, she was always positive. She always had a positive attitude. Um, I don't ever remember her being negative, but after telling her about my attacker, my mom has changed. She has an anger that she's never had before.
And I know you're not your mum, so you can't really speak for your mum, but
Hmm.
she said she didn't have a clue that that person was like that. She saw no signs, nothing.
Nobody did. Nobody did. And to this day,
Yeah.
people still don't believe me.
But that's the thing is, it's common knowledge that these peas, let's just say, without saying the word, they're very
Hmm.
they're very clever in that sense. They play
Very
the
much
long
so.
game.
They blend in so
Yeah,
good, don't they?
yeah.
And he was very handsome. He was very, my mom's very beautiful. And from the outside in, it looked like everything was perfect,
Mm.
you know.
And was he working? Was he
Oh yeah.
he wasn't drug?
Always has held a job.
Yeah, so he wasn't drug
Always has held a
dependent.
job.
So this is
No.
normal people, as we call normal,
Yeah.
functioning
My mom
society.
and him got clean together.
So they were originally they had been on when they were younger. They because you said they got clean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Truth of the story, that's my dad. It's my dad. That's who we're talking about. My true bloodline father.
Okay, so this is about you, right? So let's focus on you because you're the
Mhm.
brave one here,
Yeah.
aren't you?
And I'm sure people put that together, you know, because like even
Yeah.
in my book, I didn't really, but I mean, you know, when you hear me talk about one parent, but not the other,
Yeah.
you know, and even to this day, you know, like I've talked to him, I still talk to him, and he is remorseful, but is he remorseful because I told? Because when I was on the streets going through everything I was going through, he never just left. He didn't just leave. And that's what my mom doesn't understand either. He would hold my mom at night while she was crying because I was going through everything I was going through, but he didn't leave.
Mm.
So, you know, he, I mean, he's suffering. He is suffering. My mom has completely, you know, because my mom is gay. My mom is gay. She's always been gay. And she got with my dad to prove that her dad didn't ruin her. And he actually turned out to be just like her dad
Mm.
because my mom went through the same trauma and my grandmother went through the same trauma. So it's like this vicious family cycle.
Yeah.
And it's just scary to think about, you know, like my mom really thought she broke the cycle.
I know you said in the first video that we did together, you said there's a lot of trauma in the family. And
Hmm.
let's just play with that for a little bit so we can make sense of it. When I say we, me and you,
Hmm.
okay?
Hmm.
Because it's like, what is this? This is like you just, it's like a pattern. It was your
Hmm.
mum, and then your mum's mum, and now it's
Yep.
you. But
Hmm.
the pattern's sort of stopped now because I've seen how you
Hmm.
are with your little boy. As soon as
Hmm.
your boy needs something, you stop this interview and you take care of your lad, and he's a happy little
Yeah.
boy. It's so
Yeah, he is.
clear that you adore him unconditionally. And in the last
Yes, I do.
video, you talked about your son that you nearly lost him and how it destroyed you
Hmm.
when he was taken away, and it wasn't your fault. You're just trying to cope
Hmm.
with all this stuff. Like I say, watch part
Hmm.
one. The amount of crap. Is that the word? I don't
Hmm.
know. This
Hmm.
thing that you went through constantly. It wasn't just if you the family member doing it to you and the little kids when you were a little kid. They were just triggers. What came after that
Hmm.
was horrific, constant, and the only way you're trying to detach yourself from it because you can't be present because you're dealing with all this trauma. You can't make sense of it. And
Hmm.
you're only a little girl. The only way you can sort of feel some sort of normal is numbness by taking the most powerful drug. So when people
Hmm.
point at people and say, "Oh, so you're on drugs," I say, "You do not know what's spinning on in their thoughts constantly,"
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
helps us, doesn't it? Make
Hmm.
sense of it and not judge people because you can tell you're a nice
Yeah.
girl. Like I spoke to you for
Hmm.
hours now, and I speak to a lot of people. You can tell, you can sense it, and you're bright.
Hmm.
You're not silly, are you? You're not daft. You're very
No,
intelligent.
not at all.
You're
Very
street.
intelligent.
You can see your brain. You're very intelligent,
You
and
know, and all that stuff that has happened to me, like that stuff you can't buy in a college program. And yeah,
no.
it sucks to have to go through it. It really does. But
Mm,
I have lived experience that I would have never gotten had I not lived through it.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And now it's a story to tell. And hopefully my story can help other girls that are going through what I went through. And they may be young and they may feel like they can't tell anybody because they feel like it's their fault. It's not your fault.
Mm,
You know, learn from my life because all that does is you just run and you run and you run and you run and you numb and you numb and you numb because when you have to come down from the high, you got all these feelings and emotions that you can't tolerate. So you just want to go get high again,
well,
you know?
that's a good analogy to put it. You run and you numb.
You run.
It's like you
Yep.
run and you numb. You
I've
run.
ran my whole life. My whole life. Anytime I start to feel anything or emotions get too big, I run. I just run. I'll pack up. I'll leave everything I own and just leave. And people will never see me again. I've had to learn to quit running when I went to prison. When I was in segregation, I couldn't run from myself anymore. And literally, the universe, God, whatever you call it, sat me down and forced me to face myself. And that was hard. That was probably harder than any trauma I ever went through.
And just to help people understand and help me really through your experience, because when you're on the streets, there was other women, young girls, because you weren't a woman, you're a girl. You were 16. This is how it sort of started.
Mhm.
There would have been other girls sort of in the same shadows as you are. They're addicted to drugs. So some of them are being sex trafficked and all sorts of things. You got to know these on a certain level. Would you say they all come from trauma? The thing that's created this addiction and this way of life is always trauma. Or is that true to say that, or can
I
someone?
would
Sorry, go on.
safely say yes,
Yeah.
100%. Maybe the trauma is not as severe, like we were talking a minute ago, like sometimes somebody's parents getting divorced or them watching their mother, but it's always some type of trauma. Addiction, I mean, I guess there could be those really rare cases where somebody was just born an addict, but I don't believe that. I think it's either genetics or it's trauma.
Yeah.
Watching learned behaviors. If I watch my parents use my whole life, well, the probability of me picking up their behaviors is
Yeah.
very high, right?
Yeah, of course.
Because I'm watching it, I'm living it, I'm seeing it. You know what I mean? So those are those circumstances where, yeah, that could be another aspect. But for a lot of the women I talk to have all been traumatized, almost every single one of them.
So how would you say then? How are you able? Because you are able to do this. How do you recognize that you've been conditioned? Everything you know, you've seen all this drug use, you've seen all this drama, this toxic. Ever since you were a baby growing up, so to you it's normal. There's no shock value. So this is reality. I don't like it. It doesn't make me feel comfortable, but this is reality. So how have you now at your age, how, the way you're speaking, sort of like you can see it and go, that's bollocks. Sorry, swearing. That is not right. How are you able to recognize the truth and see all the crap? How are you able to separate it? Because there's the poison and you sort of come out of it and you can see the swamp. How are you able to be so mature, emotionally mature?
So when I went to prison, I spent the whole 9 years I was incarcerated working on myself. It took me 9 years to get to this point. And every day I try to be a better person. Every single day I wake up with the intention of being the better version of me than I was yesterday. Um, and it wasn't easy. And I think a big part, like I'm able to tell my story like it happened to somebody else because, like I told you on the first episode, I have dissociation
Yeah.
disorder. So, like, I had to live two lives. You know what I mean? So like it's kind of like it's like the story, it's like a story I tell, even though it happened to me, but I really had to relive it when I was in a cell by myself. And I was locked in that cell by myself for almost 2 years. Um I started reading books. I started trying to figure out, why do I feel this way? What is causing this? How do I fix it? What do I do? How do I be better? I started working out. I started meditating. I started trying to figure out, if this happens, it causes this emotion. How do I counteract that emotion? Because I wanted to make sure when I got out into the real world, I was the strongest version of myself so I would never break again. Because if I ever go back to addiction, I'm going to die. I'm not going to make it out alive because every time I relapsed, it's gotten worse and worse. So a third time, and if I was to lose everything, I wouldn't even want to come out. Prison saved me. Prison, a lot of people look at prison as like this horrendous sentence and all this other. It was a life-changing event for me that truly the universe stopped me from my own destruction. And it was either going to be prison or it was going to be a casket. There was no other choice for me. There was no going to rehab. My addiction was that far gone.
So let's talk about that part then, if you don't mind. So again, for the viewers, if you've got to watch part one, because you'll realize not all bad people are criminals. Believe me, all right? You ended up going to prison. Can I ask why you were sent to jail?
So We stopped here last time. I
Yeah.
met my ex. We were in that trap house and we get that fentanyl, right? We get it from the dark web.
Mm.
And I overdosed the first time. We were doing this. He started dealing on the dark web. He started dealing heroin and fentanyl on the dark web. He used to cut the heroin with fentanyl and that would make our heroin super strong. So we were doing this for about like 6, 7 months. We went from having no money to being millionaires. We were getting kilos of fentanyl sent in. And the year before I got arrested, I had overdosed 50 times. All documented because back in 2014, Narcan was not readily available in the United States. If you had to get Narcan, they had to call 911. And at this time, I'm pregnant. I get pregnant with my daughter as well. So I'm so strung out that I don't even realize I'm pregnant with her until I'm like 7 months pregnant. And that alone did something to my psyche because I got clean with my other two children, and here I am so strung out that I can't even get off this. Fentanyl is an addiction that is just indescribable. Like it literally takes your soul, it takes your mind. You will do anything for that drug, anything to not get sick on that drug. It's just wicked. Like I see these people out here strung out and I feel for them. Like I remember those days and I'll never go back to those days. But I'm with my ex and we're pretty bad. One day he comes home and I'm completely blue. And he called 911. They had to Narcan me 9 times. Like, how do you even Narcan somebody that many times? That's how gone I was. So he gets picked up. This is how this happened. This is the big part of the story. Me and him get in a fight because I have my daughter, and I told him it was hers, even though there would have been no way she was his. And in the state of Oregon, if you're married, you have to have a DNA test. So they do a DNA test, DNA comes back, it's not his. So we're in a fight, and I go in a hotel room because anytime we would fight, I'd make him put me up in a hotel room. And the next day, I get arrested for a warrant I have out of a different county. And I'm in jail and I'm trying to call him. And I hear my name and I look over and it's him and he's sitting there and he goes, Channing. And I said, what are you doing here? And he said, I'm here for murder. And I said, what? And then the guards go, you two quit talking. So we go on transport together and we're on our way to Inverness. And there's a little grate. And mind you, there's no cameras or anything watching us. And he's talking to me through the gate and he goes, there's a half kilo of fentanyl buried outside of our kitchen window. I said, what do you mean murder? And he goes, somebody overdosed in North Dakota and they're taking me in for murder. I need you to go out and I need you to get money for an attorney. So I get out 3 days later. They book and release me because it's just a petty theft warrant. And I go to our apartment. Now we had all this high tech stuff because he was a very high tech. He was a hacker. He was a hacker, so he could hack computers. He could hack everything.
Can I just ask you a question? Sorry.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm asking you because older people might ask. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You were making all this money because you were selling Class A drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which can make a fortune, but at the same time, you're an addict. You're getting high on your own supply, as they say, right?
Yeah.
What caused you to go and shoplift if you were generating all this money?
It was an old charge. It was a charge that I actually had like 2 years prior
Right,
that
and
I
then
just kept missing court for
all right.
because I would get out and they'd give me a court date and I wouldn't go to court because I didn't want to go to jail.
Okay, fair enough, thank
So that's why.
you. Okay.
So I get out and I have to kick in our kitchen window. And I break down our kitchen window and like we had so much fentanyl that you could literally scrape a pile up on the table because we were blending it and mixing it and all of that stuff. So I get out and we have 3 kitchen windows. We have 3 kitchen windows and we have 3 bushes. So I can't find it. I'm digging like 100 holes outside of the apartment. I got this little tomato plant, right? So I don't know anything about the feds. I don't know anything about serious crimes. I don't know that they record your phone calls. I don't know any of this. He calls me on the phone and he says, how's it going? And I said, I want to plant a tomato plant. What kitchen window do I plant the tomato plant at? And I'm trying to talk in code, right? So after about 2 weeks and I can't find it, I finally get irritated. I'm sick. I don't have no money. Um, no, hang on, rewind. Right before this happened, I had taken his phone and I had hacked it because he had a bunch of Bitcoins. He had like 22 Bitcoins. So I was going to go out of the ATM, the Bitcoin ATM, and I was going to get money taken out. Well, I'm at the ATM and two Homeland Security officers swarm me. And they're like in my face screaming, "You're going to jail, you're going to jail," call me all kinds of names, right? And I'm like, "What for what? For what? I didn't do anything wrong." And they said, "What are you doing? You're messing up a federal investigation." And I said, "How?" And they said, "This money is not yours." And I said, "Okay, okay, okay. I'll just leave me alone. I'll do whatever you want, you know?" And they said, "You have 2 weeks to go to treatment or we're coming to find you." So at this point, my ex calls me and I said, "Where's the fucking tomatoes? Where are the tomatoes at? And how far down are they?" So he tells me, and I go back to the apartment. I literally dig them up. Now, outside of our apartment, and it was a really nice apartment. We lived in a studio. We really didn't live lavishly. Like that was his money. He would always hold the drugs or the money above my head. You know, he was one of them men. Um, so I finally find it, and it's about a half kilo. It was about, he got caught with 750 grams of fentanyl, which ratioed out to $1.5 million street value. And then I don't even know what made him bury it outside the window. He must have felt he was being followed or something, which he was right. So I find it. And at this point, I tell him on the phone, I said, "I got a hold of your uncle heirloom." And he said, "Channing, take what you want, take what you need, and put the rest back." And I remember laughing at him. I said, "You're in jail and I'm out here. You're not going to tell me what to do anymore." So at this point, I know I'm being followed. It's after the 2 week mark. I have not went to treatment and I have a condom. And every time I would leave the apartment I was staying at, which wasn't my apartment, it was a friend's apartment, I would put this condom up inside of me. And I had a bunch of meth, heroin, and fentanyl in this condom. So I have to go clean out the apartment. They said that if I don't clean out the apartment, they're taking all my stuff. So I go with my ex's mother and we go to my apartment that night, right? And I remember I had a shot on me, and this is all I thought about for years was this shot I had on me. It was meth, heroin, and fentanyl. Now, this is what one of my shots would look like. I would mix meth, heroin, fentanyl, cocaine, Xanax, a little bit of bath salts, and ketamine all in one shot. And I was doing this like 20 times a day. This is how bad my addiction was. So I have this shot on me, and we're pulling out of my apartment, and I see an unmarked car behind us, and they turn their lights on. Well, it's Homeland Security. It's the same Homeland Security that told me I had 2 weeks. And they're in my face screaming, "Where's the tomatoes? Where's the fucking tomatoes, Channing?" And I remember telling them, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Can I just smoke a cigarette? And they said, "No, you're going to jail. And you're going to jail for a really long time." And I remember thinking that at this point I'm packed. I have so much stuff up inside of me, and I knew that I would be okay. I knew I wasn't going to get sick, right? So they take me to jail that night, and I get caught with 36 pre-packaged baggies on my person, inside of my purse. This is what I got charged with, and they put a probation hold on me so I couldn't bail out. Um, because at this point I hadn't done anything wrong federally. So they're arresting me because they want information about my ex. And these are one of those decisions that you don't think about because you're in your addiction. But why I didn't use and get well in my cell and why I waited till the next day is beyond me. So I get up for court the next morning and I go to the courtroom and I meet my co-defendant. And she's some girl who stole a bicycle. She's never really done anything wrong. She's got a bunch of petty thefts. And I asked her, I said, "What do you use?" And she goes, "I use heroin." And I said, "Do you want some China White?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm sick as fuck right now." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, and I'm trying to get it out, but I can't get it out." And she's like, "Do you need help?" She said on the discovery that it looked like I was trying to give birth. I finally get it out and I give her this tiny, tiny baggie. It was like this big. And it was like maybe $2,000 worth on the street, right? And I said, here, just do a pinhead. And I put a little grain of salt on a napkin, and she puts it in her mouth, and she's like, that's not very much. And I said, that's all you're going to need. Trust me when I tell you this. And she starts nodding out like 10 minutes later. And I'm like, are you okay? Are you okay? And she said, yeah. And I said, look, don't give this out to anybody. When you get out, I'm telling her how to mix it. Just crazy, crazy, crazy stuff that I think about now that I can't even believe I was doing. Telling her how to mix it and how to make money on it. Right. So they roll me up the next day and they take me to Inverness, which is like an open dorm. And I'm in the open dorm and I'm eating so much fentanyl at this point and heroin that I'm nodding out. Well, like 10 girls swarm my bunk, and because there's like bunk beds, right? And they're like single bunk beds, but it's just this big open dorm. And they come up to me and they say, we know you got something. And I tell them, I said, no, I don't. And they said, you're nodding out. We know you have drugs. And I said, I don't have any drugs. And they're like following me into the bathroom and everything. So I pulled this one girl aside and I said, hey, do you do meth? And she said, yeah. I said, I'm going to pay you to watch me. Right? Because I didn't want to get jumped or anything when I was in the shower. So she goes everywhere with me. Well, 3 days later, I hear my name called and I think I'm getting released. Like I'm seriously delusional at this point. And they say, where the fuck is Lacey? And I go, hello, I'm here. I'm here. And they take me out of the room and they put me in this little interview room. And they show me a picture of my co-defendant. And then they show me a picture of 3 other girls. And they say, do you know this girl? And I said, no, I don't know her. And they said, well, funny, because she has fentanyl. And these other 3 women overdosed, but nobody died, but they had to get Narcan. So either you give us what you got, or we're going to take you in for a cavity search. And at this point, like I said, being the drug addict I am, I don't want them to get all of my drugs. So I say, okay, I'll give you what I got. So they pull me in a dry cell, they strip search me, and I squat down and I grab out 1 bag and I give it to the guards. And the next day, they take me back to what they call the hole, where you get out 15 minutes a day. You're put in a white jumpsuit, and they say your straight charges are being dropped and the feds are picking you up. And I asked them, I said, what does that mean? And they said, you're being taken into federal custody. So I go to court the day after that, and I'm really like just out of my mind. I'm eating so much fentanyl at this point that I don't even know what's real and what's not. And I go to court, and I will never forget this moment. And I'm sitting there, and this attorney sits across from me, and there's like this grate between us. And I see the paper, and it says distribution resulting in serious bodily harm, mandatory minimum 20 years to life. And I looked at her and I said, what is that? And she said, calm down. And I said, what is that? That's a murder charge. That 20 years to life. What are you talking about? Nobody died. And she said, calm down, Channing. That's not much how much time you're gonna get. And I start freaking out. I felt like somebody had punched me in my gut. And they take me back to the jail. So this time we're just entering a not guilty plea and we're pushing everything over. And I go back to the jail, right? And I'm still in the hole. They bring drug sniffing dogs to every female dorm throughout MCDC and Inverness. They strip search every female, and they tore up every female dorm looking for fentanyl, making sure it was all gone, right? So the trustee at this point comes up to my door and she says, we know you got drugs, because the minute they brought you in, they bring drug sniffing dogs. And I told her, I said, now, because they take my commissary, I don't have no food, I'm hungry, right? I said, I got China White, but I want commissary, So she says, well, what do you want? I got a room full of commissary. And I said, okay. So I give her a little list. And I honestly can't remember how many times this stuff was sold, but I remember that I had a room full of commissary. And let me see. So I got picked up March 3rd, and March 21st is when this happened. I remember sitting there. I had just given her some, and I'm sitting in my cell. And the night before this had happened, I remember hallucinating, and I'm hearing my mother's voice. And she's going, come here, Channing, come here. And I'm trying to open up a door in my wall, but it's just a wall, but I think it's a door. And then I hear this voice start cussing at me, telling me, calling me a stupid bitch and all kinds of names. So I lay back down, right? I lay back down and I'm like, okay, I'm hallucinating. The next day, I remember laying in my cell and I hear banging on the door and I hear an inmate going, officer, she's not breathing. And I knew it was the trustee. And the officer tells the inmate, they go, you need to get the fuck away from the door, right? So they tell the inmate, they go, you need to get the fuck away from the door. And at this point, I know that this inmate is dying. So I eat 3 grams of pure fentanyl. I took out 3 grams of pure fentanyl and I swallowed the whole bag. And I remember in my head, I said, goodbye, mother, I love you. And they swarm in my cell. She did die. That inmate did die. They swarm in my cell. They take me to a dry cell and they tell me, we are doing a cavity search on you. And at this point, I like it. It's so hazy, right? Because I just remember I'm overdosing at this time too. They take me in for a cavity search. They take me into OHSU for an invasive cavity search. Hang on, just real quick.
Yeah, just give you a minute, actually.
Yeah,
It's
sorry
a lot.
about that.
It's all right. It's a lot of
Phone call.
information that you.
Yeah,
This is crazy.
yeah.
It just
Mm-hmm.
it's like gets drama after drama. It can't get any worse.
Right. Oh, it does. It really does after this point. The way I get treated after this is so crazy to me. So you take me in for a cavity search and I go to a hospital, OHSU. I remember overdosing. I'm seizing, but I'm still paying attention to my surroundings. And I remember in the back of the cop car, I just keep thinking, I got to get these bags out. I got to get these bags out before they pull them out, right? So being handcuffed, I'm like trying to get these bags out of inside of me. And I managed to get one out. But I'm still seizing. I'm overdosing as this is all happening. So they get me there and I have like 15 US Marshals around me and cops and officers and I'm in the waiting room at the hospital and they're waiting for a doctor who can do a cavity search, who can do like a pap smear and all that. So I tell them I need to go to the bathroom and I tell them, I said, I'm cold. I need something to drink. And I'm like shaking like violently. And I said, I need to go to the bathroom. And one of the guards says, well, you're not going alone. And I said, okay. So they wheelchair me in there. And I get up out of the wheelchair and there's a bag under my ass. And I'll never forget one of the detectives picks it up in the air and he holds it up over his head and he's like, look what we got. Look what we got. And I was just like, oh my fucking God. So I go to the bathroom because I was going to try and get more out. And they end up taking me in. They do like, it's like a pap smear. They go up inside of, both holes. And they pull out 6 more bags. And then they give me a CAT scan, they give me an X-ray, and then they go up the other part, and they take me back to the jail and they put me on the 4th floor. Now the 4th floor is all men. It's where they put the most violent offenders. So they throw me on the 4th floor and it looks like a dungeon. It's so surreal. I remember going there and mind you guys, I'm still overdosing this whole time. Like I had eaten a bag of about 3 grams of fentanyl, pure fentanyl too. But my tolerance was so high that I guess I guess I didn't die. So I go back to the 4th floor and the 2 detectives pull me out and they're trying to question me again. And I told them, I said, fuck you. I said, you guys got all the drugs. I'm not talking anymore. And the guy starts screaming at me. He says, you stupid bitch, you're going to prison for the rest of your fucking life. And I said, I said, I want an attorney. I'm not talking to you guys anymore. So they leave. And as they're leaving, a nurse looks at me and she goes, this inmate is blue. And they said, we don't give a fuck about that inmate. Let her die like the other one. And the nurse says, I'm not going to have another inmate overdose on my watch. So she takes my vitals, and my respiratory rate is at 12%. And she starts screaming, we need to Narcan her immediately. So they Narcan me 3 times, and they take me to the hospital overnight. And I remember going to the hospital, and I'm sitting in the cop car, and or in the ambulance, and there's like 3 cops. And one of the guards looks at me and she goes, you're suicidal. And I said, I'm not suicidal, because I know what happens when you're suicidal. They put you in a turtle suit, they put you in a turtle suit with a hole in the ground. I said, I'm not suicidal. And she goes, yeah, you're suicidal. And she starts smirking at me. And I said, all right, well, I mean, I guess I'm going to lose the argument here. They take me to the hospital overnight. They take me back to the jail, and they put me on suicide watch, where a guard watches me 24/7. And they do that so they can make sure I don't have any more drugs in me, or I don't, poop any drugs out or whatever. I mean, I'm guessing that's what it was. So I'm on suicide watch for about 5 days, and I ate so much fentanyl that it takes me 5 days to start detoxing after I was Narcan 3 times. So I'm on day 5, and they roll me up. They say, Lacey, roll up. And that just means like you're going to a different county. And I'm asking them, I'm like, where am I going? Where am I going? They said, you're going to Columbia County. Well, Columbia County is that county I told you about that I had warrants at. Remember? I said I always have warrants at, and they would go and arrest me and book and release me. So I'm so out of my mind that I think I'm getting released. So the U.S. Marshals are driving me to Columbia County, and I'm telling him, I said, hey, can I make a phone call when I get out? And I remember the U.S. Marshal looks at me and he goes, what do you mean, get out? And I said, well, I'm getting booked and released here. I have warrants. And they laugh and they look at me and they said, okay, tell us how that goes for you. And I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. I literally was not comprehending everything that just happened. So I get to Columbia County, then they put me in a booking cell, and I start detoxing. And when I tell you, fentanyl detox is probably the worst experience I have ever experienced in my entire life. This gel gives me 2 Tylenol and 1 Imodium for a week. That's all they gave me. And I tried to kill myself. I did. I tied a pant leg around my neck, and I tried to flush it down the toilet because I watched those stupid gel shows. But the only way that works is if you're on a double, triple tier, and I'm on a single floor. Then I break my glasses. And the one thing about me is I'm like legally blind. So when I don't have glasses, I can't see. So I break my glasses. What are you doing, Christopher? I break my glasses and I try to cut my wrist. So a guard comes in and she goes, are you trying to kill yourself, Channing? And I said, no. And she goes, well, why are your pants wet? And I said, I don't know. And she said, well, what's wrong with your glasses? And I said, oh, I laid on them. And she goes, do we have to put you in the turtle suit? And I said, no, you guys don't have to do that. And so I ended up staying there for 5 weeks. Right. And then they take me back to a dorm. And I'm not in a dorm. I'm in single cells. There's 6 cells in like this little dorm. There's only 2 female dorms in that county because it's a really small county, but it's a federal holding facility. Well, I end up doing 24 months in segregation there, in complete administrative segregation. Administrative segregation means you get 45 minutes out a day and you are completely segregated.
So can you just talk about that for a minute? Segregation,
Yeah.
for people who've not experienced. So just clarify again. What does segregation look like?
Segregation is horrible. You have no outside contact. I mean, you can see other inmates, but there's only like 6 other ones, and they're all crazy. They're all coming down, or they have severe mental health issues. And it's hard. Segregation, I literally almost lost my mind. And I'll never forget, I gained like 100 pounds, and I was just eating, and I'm coming down, and I'm just eating, and I'm eating, right? And I remember sitting in my cell, and I'm hearing pianos playing because you have cabin fever. Segregation makes you have cabin fever. You hear noises that aren't real. You hear voices that aren't there. You hear music playing that's not there. And I remember sitting in my cell, and I had this epiphany. And I said, this isn't going to break me. I said, this is not going to break me. Channing, you are not going to be broken. Pull it together. And I started working out the next day. And I started having my mom send me like self-help books, DBT therapy, CBT therapy, all different kinds of therapy books, right? Because I'm trying to fix myself. I'm trying to figure out, why am I so crazy? Why am I feel like I'm going out of my mind right here? You know, I kept like, I'd have some good days, and then the next day I'd be like wanting to scream. And I started just working on myself little by little. I started working out at 30 pounds, and I lost 40 pounds, and I started pushing myself. How long of a plank could I do? I did a 30-minute plank. Um, you know, just all kinds of stuff. Segregation was probably one of the hardest times in my life, but it was the most, I don't even know the word for it, spiritually enlightening. The most dramatic shift. That is when I actually had to sit down and face my own demons. I had to face myself. I didn't have a choice.
It's as if it's just you're just locked in this small room with you
Hmm.
and your thoughts.
It's like a 5x5,
Five
a
by
5x5.
five. There's,
Hmm.
there's nothing else there. Just there's no
Just
other,
me.
no distractions, no radio, no TV. Just you and
I
your
mean,
thoughts.
there's a TV out there, but I didn't get to see it for myself because I was all the way by the wall. So I could hear it screaming all the time because they would turn it up so loud, and I just hear like this, like, you just want to scream. All you hear is screaming. All you hear are inmates screaming and talking to themselves and coming down, detoxing, screaming, crying, help, help. And I honestly wanted to get high. Like the whole time I was there, I was trying to find somebody who had drugs, who was bringing in drugs. I just wanted to escape. And I was on all kinds of medication. I kept telling them I had all these mental health issues. I need medication. I need more medication. Put me on lithium, put me on Depakote, put me on something. I need something for sleep. I need something for depression. I need something for anxiety. And by the time I was done, I was on like 10 different medication. And then I hated it. I wanted off all of them. Then I'd get off of them. Then I wanted back on them you know oh, I didn't want to get off of them. I don't like the way I feel. Like nothing made me feel all right. Nothing I did made me feel okay. So I meet this girl. She asks me, she goes, hey, my boyfriend's in jail and I can't write him because we're both on probation, right? She goes, can we use your name? And I said, yeah, sure, you can use my name. So she ends up using my name and they're corresponding together, right? Well, the captain comes in one day and he goes, Lacey, I need to talk to you. And I said, okay. He shows me a picture of her and him. And he goes, do you have any idea why they're here? And I said, no, they're here on a probation violation. And he said, they're part of the biggest brood murder investigation in Oregon right now. And you're helping them communicate. And I said, what do you mean? I didn't know that. No, I'm not helping them communicate. I thought they were on probation, right? And they they tell me don't let it happen again. So I go back and I tell her through the door, I said, hey, don't use my name anymore. Like, do not use my name. I'm going to get in trouble. Right. So a couple days later, I get rolled up and I have no clue where I'm going. I've not been sentenced. There's nowhere else for me to go but back to the county where my crime happened. And I asked the guard, I said, why are you rolling me up? And she said, we don't know. The U.S. Marshals are taking you somewhere different. And I said, what do you mean they're taking me somewhere different? There's nowhere else for me to go. And she goes, just roll your stuff up, Channing, or Lacey. That's what they call you. They call you by your last name. And so I'm rolling my stuff up and they take me back to Multnomah County where my crime happened. And I call my attorney and I'm like, I tell my attorney, I'm like, this is all bad. This is all bad. I'm back here in Multnomah County. This is all bad. And she's like, calm down. I was like, they can't do this, right? And she goes, they can do whatever they want to you. So this is where the story gets really messed up. I mean, this part of it anyways. So they take me back and they take me back to the dorm where the overdose happened, right? And I go in there and they tell me the cell I'm supposed to go to. And I knew immediately the cell I was going to was the cell my victim died in. And I look at the guard and I said, are you serious right now? Because there was like 3 or 4 empty cells. And she looks at me and she goes, you heard me. get to your cell. And I looked at her and I said, okay, all right, you're not going to break me. If you guys are trying to break me, you're not going to break me. So I go up to my cell and I get violently ill. I threw up for 24 hours. I called the nurses. I put in kites. I was throwing up. I couldn't hold anything down. My head hurt so bad. And I tell my attorney, I tell my mom, I said, Mom, I'm in the cell my victim died in. And like nobody was listening to me. Nobody cared. I'm not saying my mom didn't care, but my mom couldn't do anything. My attorney's like, well, they can do whatever they want to you. It is up to the jail's discretion where they want to house you. And I said, what do you mean this is inhumane? This is not humane. And about a week later, they took me out of the girl's cell. They put me in a different cell. And yeah, that was mentally, that was so hard, you know, because she passed away on her toilet. And I couldn't even believe that they could do that to me. And I couldn't believe, you know, I'm already being punished for my actions, but to do such an inhumane thing is so mind blowing to me that they even can do that to a person.
Well, looking back, why would you think they would do that? Because they knew they had a record. They thought, wait a minute, this is where that incident happened. They're not stupid. And then they think, oh, let's put her back in there. Like,
They thought it was funny.
Do you think that's what it was, or would they say, "Oh, it's
100%"?
Would they argue and say, "Oh, it was because the prison's overcrowded. We had to place her somewhere, and that was the only." They've done it
No.
to. And why do you think the guards would do
Listen,
that?
I actually had a guard. After this happened, I got moved to dorm 17, which is where all the violent offenders are. When the guard found out what my crime was, I mean, they're acting like I'm this horrendous person. I'm not trying to downplay my crime by no means, but there's tons of other inmates there that were there for way worse crimes than me. He found out what my crime was. He says, roll your fucking shit up. He goes, I don't even want to see your face. You're gone. And I said, what do you mean? I haven't been sentenced yet. He goes, I don't even want to see you. You disgust me. Yeah. This happened like 2 months after they housed me in her cell. And they did that. They moved me from dorm to dorm. They would never leave me in a dorm for very long.
What do you think?
Ever.
Channing, what do you think it was? They could be just narcissistic, evil, controlling people. Could be.
Honestly, I think it was because nobody knew what fentanyl was. And here I bring in this dangerous drug. And
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, they trusted a drug addict at their word. They should have taken me in for a cavity search the first time. That was their fault. They also could have had a pretty severe lawsuit on their hands, which I'm glad they didn't, because I guess I would have had to have paid it. But they didn't do their jobs right. You know, you're going to take a severely strung out drug addict who tells you they're going to give you all their drugs and believe them.
Right.
Come
so
on.
so
Really?
they're thinking you've got us in trouble. Well, you haven't. They've got themselves in trouble because they
Right.
didn't do the job properly. They took your word for it.
No.
Obviously,
Yeah.
that's what they say. You can't trust a drug addict. My cousin was a
can't.
heroin addict for years. He's recovered now,
Mhm.
but he even says you can't trust us. And you've even said
You
it
can't.
yourself. And they know that.
Mhm.
They know that they can't. And because he trusted you, which is their fault, now they're getting penalised. So they, like you said, they're going to come after you now. They're going to, and that's why they treated you like that. They're going to torment you.
And
that's
that
what
was
they
so
do.
inhumane. Like I've told a bunch of people that, and every single person was like, how could they do that to you? You know? And they did. They made me out to be this like horrendous monster. So they started moving me around, but they like started to reintroduce me into society. So mind you, at this point, I'm in a cell by myself for like 24 months. So they start kind of reintroducing me to people. And I am around people for like 3 or 4 hours a day, but I'm still in a cell by myself. And I'm working out and I'm motivating these women. You know, a lot of these women that I'm in the cells with are there for murder. You know, they've murdered their boyfriends because they were beating them, or they murdered because of a man, or they have assault charges. We're all violent offenders. We all have violent crimes. And they're all people. And I would motivate them and I'd say, let's work out. Let's meditate, you guys. Come on, don't let this break you. And every single one of those women wrote my judge and told my judge that I helped them, that I really helped them. And that's one of the reasons why my judge didn't give me, I got sentenced to 135 months. Um, because he saw how much of a change I was trying to make, you know. Um, I was in county for 29 months total. Um, when I finally got sentenced, they take me from a cell by myself on Con Air, which is where you fly like a Air Force base with like 50 US Marshals standing around with shotguns, and they take you on a plane with like 200 inmates, and they fly you to different like hub spots. So you go from Oregon, you go to Pahrump, Nevada, and I went to Pahrump and I was in a dorm, an open dorm with women. And I didn't even know how to act. Like I'm standing there looking at the ground. And people are trying to talk to me. I won't even look them in the face and talk to them. Like I'm so uncomfortable. I'm so just tripped out by this, you know? Um, so I go from Pahrump, Nevada, an open dorm to Grady County, Oklahoma. Um, I get sentenced in September and they start moving me in October. And I'm freezing. And on the plane they put you on, they have the air conditioner on you. So it's like wintertime and you're like freezing, you're shivering, you have no coats, you got paper suits on. And I'm I go to Grady County, Oklahoma. It's another open dorm, same thing. I won't talk to people. I got my head down. I don't even know how to act around this many women. And then they take me to the prison I go to, which is in Waseca, Minnesota. And I get there and I meet one of my first bunkies, and she's like, "Are you all right?" And I said, "No, no, I'm not. I just did almost 29 months in a cell by myself. I'm not okay." You know, they got these new laws they just passed where you can't do more than 15 days in segregation at a time because it causes severe psychological damage. Like there's some serious class action lawsuits starting about this,
Yeah, I can
that
imagine.
they are literally damaging human beings because they're keeping them in segregation for so long. So I get to prison. My bunkie kind of like takes me under her wing. You know, she had 30 years for crack, and thankfully she got a pardon. She did get a pardon. She didn't do all that time. She didn't think she was ever going to get out of prison, actually. It wasn't even her crack; it was her boyfriend's crack. But she took me under her wing, and she really helped me. But I was still really out of my mind at this time. Like I was on a good path, and I was coming a long way, but I was still taking different medications to just escape myself, you know, like anything I could take to just make me feel a little bit uppers and a little bit downer, put me to sleep or make me wake up, you know. It wasn't until about when the pandemic hit, and that in prison was surreal. They treated us like, oh my God, these guards would lock 30 of us in a basement, like the bottom tier that should only house 12 people. They locked 35 of us in there, and half of the guards wouldn't even come in there and check on us. You know, they would throw our food and stuff in there at us. And yeah, the pandemic hit, and I think I really just I stopped craving drugs. I stopped thinking about drugs. I started meditating more, and I started to really get into manifestation and just dreaming of my dream life and dreaming of all the things I'm going to do when I get out. You know, I never thought in a million years I'd have another child, though. Like he was definitely a beautiful blessing. Um, I thought I was going to get out and be this, you know, huge fitness star because I used to work out so much.
So from that point, it's just when your life sort of completely started to change, when you
Mhm,
started to meditate and then you started to
mhm,
wake up, if you like. When I say wake up,
mhm.
you started to become your true self instead of
Right.
this egoic, demonic, traumatic voice trying to torment you. You sort of,
Yeah.
but that was amazing, wasn't it? It was like, oh, okay, I'm sort of creating a bit of a space that can breathe here, and then things
Hmm.
starting to change. So from there, now it starts to go to a different. There's a little boy. Oh, he's there
Look,
again.
you got chocolate cupcakes again. I see what you're doing while I'm in there.
He's supposed to be eating bananas. He likes bananas.
God.
No
I
cupcakes.
woke up this morning and you got into chocolate cupcakes.
Yeah,
That's
bananas.
why you're not taking a nap, huh? Look
Bananas
at
are
all
good
these
for you.
toys. This is how
Look at that,
spoiled my
eh?
child is.
Well, that's good. It feeds his imagination. That's what
Oh
kids
yeah,
need,
he's got
toys.
every toy. He loves his toys. He's so cute. He wakes up in the morning and I swear to God, he dreams about his little toys because he'll run his, it's just cute. It's so adorable.
I should.
I'm so glad that I could give him that, you know?
No, absolutely. What we'll do, right? Because obviously it's taking a different chapter now. It's gonna shift, isn't it?
Mhm.
Which is a good thing. Again,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to do part 3 now, right?
Okay.
Just a quick one. You know the guy who you were courting. Is he still in prison now?
Yeah.
Is he the? Are
Yep.
you still currently in a relationship with him?
No, 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 no. This dude was the most toxic person I've ever been with. You know, he was like 15 years older than me too. God, he's got to be like 50 something now. He might have even been 20 years older than me.
There's been a pattern as well. If you watch the first video, there's a pattern that you've always gone out with men are ridiculously older than you. Not a couple of years, decades. Now, my wife's
Yeah.
14 years older than me, but I'm pretty old. But when you're 16 and you're going out with someone who's in the 30s or 40, now that's a bit
Or
odd.
20, 22. You know, I was like 22 when I got with him because we
Yeah.
were 27. No, I was like 24. We were 27 when we got locked up. My child's father now is actually the youngest. He's 2 years older than me.
That's more reasonable. And where's the little baby's dad now? Is he in prison?
So he is going to prison for 77 months because he relapsed.
Drugs again.
And yeah, he's never been given any chances. He's a product of his environment, and he every time he gets in trouble, they've never given him a chance, give him drug treatment, give him drug
Yeah.
court, anything like that. It's just send him to prison for 5 to 10 years. You
Does-
know what I mean? It's horrible.
It's it. Do you know what, Shannon? It's like prison doesn't bloody work. This is a lot of this is drug addiction, mental health, trauma based, and so we'll put you in a cage and torment you. So that's the worst possible thing you can ever do. You need support, right? You don't want to take drugs. You didn't. You never wanted to take drugs. You just didn't want to.
No,
You wanted these.
I didn't want to fill myself.
No, you just want
I
to.
didn't want to be in my own head.
Yeah. And you're not alone. There's other people. They don't say, "Oh, I'll take drugs because I want to get high." They don't. They're trying to escape reality. So the solution is, well, what is this thing that I'm running from? I have to sort of recondition and like you know this, reprogram, understand this thing that's trying to kill me inside. Because at the minute I can't cope with it, and the only other option I've got is to stick as many drugs in my body to alter my state, so I don't have to think. It's like you're living, like it's horrible. You know, right, what it's like. Everyone's experienced certain levels of trauma at a certain degree, everyone. But the degree of trauma, it's more horrific in the other video, by the way, of what you've been through. It literally breaks my heart listening to your story. Because nobody's...
It's crazy, huh?
Yeah, nobody's...
It's so crazy to me.
Yeah, no one saved you. And it's like, it makes me angry. But...
And that's all I wanted.
I know,
I just wanted
I
somebody
know.
to save me, you know?
I know.
But I saved myself.
Exactly.
So that's the good part of the story. I saved myself.
You did. And because now the thing about that, because you've done that, right, you really know what you're talking about. So if there's people watching this, or they know someone who's suffering with addiction, or they're going through something, it's easy to point your finger at them and go, well, they're just horrible. So you don't know what's going on. Now, listen to someone like Shangling. I keep on getting it wrong. Channing. I'm an idiot, aren't I? Right, listen, we're going to cut it, right? There's more to this. Believe me, I'm hearing this first hand. I didn't know about this. Even the first video really upset me. It's very graphic, but it's important. So watch this book that you've written, because I'm actually going to buy this book, and I don't really buy books. I'll buy them, I just don't read them. Show me your book. Have you got your book there? Have you got a copy of it so I can have a look?
Oh, yeah, hang on. Let me pull it up.
You've
I pull it up on the other phone.
got to read this book. The way you, like,
guys.
let me, while you're just doing that, let me just talk to the listeners, right? Right, so I've got the wrong glasses on. I can't even see anything. I know. I can't.
That's funny.
I bought cheap glasses. I've got really expensive glasses. They look exactly the same as these, but these were like a pound or $1, as they say in America. They're called a pound here. They're cheap glasses. And they're right in my eyes. But anyway,
Really?
I'm waffling on again. I do that. Sorry. Listen, get this book. You're going to find out what it's called in a minute. You read it.
Right
It's
here.
this is from the soul, and for Channing to actually write this, where she's got a bravery from, is unreal. But like you said, she's actually literally had to detach herself, like she's talking about a different person, because it's so horrific that anybody else, it would have literally killed them. But
Yeah.
she's here and she's sharing the story.
Do you see
Right?
it?
Not yet. There you go. There you go. Look, there it is. Unbreakable. Just lift it up a
The
bit
Rise
for
of
me.
the Phoenix Girl.
There you go. Unbreakable. And just so they can see it. Channing feet. There you go. You see it? Right. I'm going to put
Hold on,
it's
look.
on Amazon, isn't it?
Hang on. Yeah. There we go.
I like that picture. That's nice.
see it?
That. Look at that. Confident, no messing. Unbreakable. That's a good title because that's exactly what you are.
Isn't it?
Unbreakable.
I've actually written I'm working on I wrote 2 books. I wrote a 90-day devotional for manifestation stuff I did to heal myself through trauma, and I'm working on my affirmations, my Phoenix frequencies,
Yeah.
which are my affirmations I came up with in prison
Yeah.
that I have literally watched manifest. All this stuff that I'm manifesting, I worked on in prison. I'm seeing it come true, and it's so amazing. You know, if you think you're too far gone or your
Yeah.
addiction's got you too down, if I can make it out, anybody can.
Absolutely.
You know,
Even with that, so when people say, "Oh, that law of attraction and all that," that's what they call it, manifestation. You can
Yeah.
you can create physical things out of no thing. Yeah, you can, right? The power of the mind is so
100%.
underestimated, isn't it?
yeah,
Because if you look at all the negative stuff that's happened in your life, it's all because of your mind, right? So that's how powerful it is. So if it can do something negative, there's something called the law of polarity. You can do the opposite. If you can make really good things happen,
yeah.
and it's good,
And
that, isn't
people
it?
don't realize that, like, you recreate stuff that, like, if you don't believe you're worthy, you're going to keep recreating instances that prove what you really believe. It's
Yeah.
not just your mind, it's what you believe. Like your deep rooted beliefs that you have since childhood, like not feeling you're worthy or you're just like
Yeah.
an object, you know, that really stays with you. And
Yeah.
people don't understand, like, how much damage that really does to people.
Absolutely. It's underestimated.
And how hard it is to even get out of it, you know, how hard it is to retrain your mind when you have 30 years of same thought patterns. It's almost impossible. It's so hard. You have to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. It's repetitive. You know, you have to relearn behaviors.
Yeah. So when people say let's just be positive, you can't be positive. You've got to reprogram your thoughts.
Reprogram.
Exactly. That's it. Yeah, that's the only way you can do
You
it.
have to reprogram.
Reprogram.
100%.
It's that saying, Channing, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Now, if you really think about that, say, right, let me look at
like
this
that.
again. And let me understand it. And that's what we do on this channel. This is why we analyze things. Obviously, you're doing a lot of talking. It's your story, of course, but you're analyzing it. That's how you survive. Because you thought, wait a minute, what is this? Why is this? Why do I feel like this? I know what the seed is. I know what caused it originally, but why is it manifested into all these? Why has it got worse? What's going on? You've sort of looked at it, haven't you?
Saw my pattern. Yeah, I saw my patterns.
I like. Hey, that could be
the
the name of the book. I saw my pattern. I like that.
Yeah, I like that too.
We're gonna do part
yeah, I
3.
do.
We're gonna do part 3.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Okay.
It's only
Part 3 is definitely the happiest of all of it. You know, I mean, there's some episodes in prison that won't be too happy, but for the most part, part 3 is the good part. You know.
No, definitely. So what we'll do, we'll have another part. Because again, we've been talking again for another hour and a half. That's 3 hours.
Crazy.
And believe me,
That's
there's more in the book, isn't there?
Yeah.
we're just skimming over it, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You ate all the cupcakes. Look at that. They're
Oh,
all
the
gone.
baby's eating the cupcakes.
You cupcake
No.
face.
Where's your
He ate all the
banana?
cupcakes.
You having a banana?
Hi.
You have a
He
banana?
says hi. Where's your banana?
Where's the banana?
No. He says no, nanny.
No, he wants chocolate. No
Got that
chocolate.
stuff. Yeah. Now he's on a chocolate cake. That was the
No
worst thing
chocolate. I'm anti-chocolate. I say that. I'm always bloody eating
Yeah.
it. But yeah, the chocolate's not good for you. We want bananas, don't
I
we?
know, right?
But
yeah.
guys,
You want a nanny?
oh,
He says no.
I've got plenty of kids, believe me. Because I've worked with social services and fostered children.
That's so awesome.
It
I
is.
admire that.
But it's them. That's why I like listening to stories like this, because I understand trauma to an extent, obviously, because I've not really experienced too much of it in my life. Nothing like you have, but I'm around that, and it helps me to know how do I approach people without being ignorant and narrow-minded, trying to see the bigger thing. And I try to do that with people. We're going to leave it here just for now. Again, there's a lot more to say, and we're going to get into it in another video. But Shining, thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And you
appreciate
are
you having me.
amazing. And I say this to you.
Thank you.
I know it's hard for you to hear this, and I'm not just saying it to be positive or patronizing you. I'm being sincere. You're bloody amazing. Right?
Thank you. I
Because
appreciate that.
there's something in you that wants to express itself. It's this pureness, this innocence, but it's very powerful. And like you said, it's unbreakable. It's literally unbreakable. They can break your mind, they can break your body, but they ain't touching your spirit. They ain't got a chance.
No, they never did.
I'm getting goosebumps.
They never did.
I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah.
Giving me goosebumps. But thank you so much.
They never did.
Deep breath. There you go. So, what an interesting chapter,
Yeah.
isn't it? You're traumatizing me in these stories, but there's a positive outcome, isn't there? Right. So
Yes,
you.
there is.
Thank you so much for Shannon. Again, we're going to do part 3. I didn't even think there'll be a part 3, but we get further down the rabbit hole. And what me and Shannon we were talking about just before we come on camera, we were talking about half an hour, and she was telling me about all this other world that people aren't aware of, the underbelly of the world, and she knows it because she's seen it. Trafficking, Satanism, grooming, the lot. Don't ever think there's life, and then there's the underbelly. And this is the thing, people like Shining are going to say, look, I know what's really going on, and she's going to share it with you, which takes some guts. It takes more than guts. It takes spirit, and she's got plenty of it. Until next time, guys, take care. Thank you, and look after yourself.